do. It's Monday. Today is Monday. We're doing our thing. We can do whatever we want on Mondays. Because Mondays suck. Do. Boo, 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 ba doo, boo. Boo. Doo, boo, boo. Boo, boo, ba doo, boo, ba doo, boo, ba doo. Oh, yeah, let's go. Here we go, people. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show. Thanks, guys. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to hang out with me. I'm currently live on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and I think that's it. Who knows these days? And, share this on all social media platforms. We are live currently. We're going to see what's going on in the world, see what's up on this lovely Monday afternoon. I hope you guys are doing just swell. If you want to support me, you go to buymeacoffee.com/Derek O'Shea Show. Link is in the description notes below, and I would greatly appreciate it. It means a lot to me when you do. Nothing like saying I just don't care about the corporate media as much as other people by putting, your money where your mouth is kind of thing. But let's start off with today's quote from Winston Churchill. Big fan. Good movie. We shall defend our island. Whatever the cost may be, we shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Winston Churchill. But let's get into it on the Derek O'Shea Show. Welcome to the Derek O'Shea Show, where we discuss culture, news, politics, and more. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to tell your friends and family about the revolution. Oh, yeah. One more time, let's read that quote. We shall defend our island. Whatever the cost may be, we shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Right now, we have a huge potential war popping off like you know what. Let's listen right now to a news report, and then I will give my thoughts on just things I've been seeing in the news. Whether you're on the Democratic, Republican, Libertarian mindset, whatever you're coming from, let's listen to what's going on in Ukraine. Let's check it out right here. Check this clip out.
This afternoon, a major announcement from the Pentagon amid growing intensity from Russian aggression towards Ukraine. The U.S. now placing 8,500 troops on high alert so they can be used to form part of NATO's response force if that unit is activated.
As of now, the decision has been made to put these units on higher alert and higher alert only. No decisions have been made to deploy any forces from the United States at this time.
The message follows this one from NATO Secretary General.
We will always do what is necessary to protect and defend all our allies. And I welcome that allies are stepping up.
Russia now amassing tens of thousands of troops along its border with Ukraine. Some fear a Russian invasion could happen at any moment, something Russia denies. But the British government has accused the Kremlin of plotting to insert a pro-Russian politician as the leader of Ukraine. And now the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine is ordering staff's families to evacuate and authorizing non-emergency personnel to depart. And also today, ABC News obtaining this Department of Homeland Security bulletin sent to law enforcement agencies around the country. Warning, we assess that Russia would consider initiating a cyber attack against the homeland if it perceived a U.S. or NATO response to a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. has threatened that Russian aggression could lead to crippling economic sanctions and restricting Russian access to semiconductors that enable computer and smartphone technology. Alex Prochet,
And
ABC
one
News,
other
Washington.
thing. Let's just be real about a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff in play right now regarding this war. And I am not an expert on this issue. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, as always with everything on my podcast, because why would you take anybody's word anyways and say that like, this is the only sole expert on the issue that I'll listen to. I think that's just silly and childish and not something I know my listeners do. But regarding Ukraine and Russia, it's a tough one. And I think people are so lackadaisical or just so quick to be like, we have to go to war. Or there's absolutely no reason for us to do so. As opposed to, being slow to speak and quick to listen and being patient of what the answer should be. There are a lot of things in play right now to pretend like it's, I can't believe, what was this, ABC News, Russian semi-chip conductors, as opposed to, us buying oil more and more from them because, we're more concerned with taking down our own pipelines and not renewing our own leases for our own oil and gas and stuff like that. So we're like, we want to start a war with a country in which we buy a bunch of oil from instead of, being energy independent like we were under Trump. But I digress. The situation is tough. We've made agreements with Ukraine that we back them. NATO, I think, has overextended its boundaries and power. I think a lot of European countries aren't doing much in this circumstance for Ukraine. So if they don't want to go all the way over and help them out, why would we go all the way over and help them out? I think we're very quick to send kids to war, especially, people talking about war who clearly, I'm sure, have never been in an actual physical fight with another human being in their life. They're so quick to jump to, we have to defend it. We have to send our troops in. We have to go to war. And I'm just like, bro, you've never even been in a fist fight. It sucks. Being in a life and death situation is not for the faint of heart. And I think that's what we're into right now. And I think we don't have the stomach for war in our country or in our society, in our culture. We haven't for a long time. We tend to go to war with one foot out, one foot in because of rules and regulations and just because of the way the media is, the backing of people in the country. There's so many things. So going to war right now when inflation's where it's at, and housing markets where it's at, the COVID narrative, what's going on with that. There is so much wrong in our country as we have veterans on the street who, are homeless. We have an incredible homeless problem in our major cities. We have crime skyrocketing like never before. And of course, our politicians are quick to be like, let's go to war. We're screwing up, so we have to do this. It's no choice. There's no nuance to this, or and everything I've seen too, especially coming from Republicans, is like, remember World War II if we just sit back and do nothing. Not every war is World War II. Please let me know your thoughts around this, because I'm at the point now where I don't feel like we're ready for any kind of war, especially when our biggest enemy currently isn't Russia, it's China. But we're consumed with the Beijing Olympics, so we can't even talk about that at the moment. And plus, I don't think Russia's going to do anything until, the end of winter. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. I haven't heard a good argument of reasons to go to war, to send our troops in, to devote all this time and time and presence in an area in which a lot of our allies in Europe don't seem to really care too much. They're batting eyes. They want their pipeline from Russia, of course. But let me know your thoughts are on this, because I think it's just, we are at a point in our culture and country where we have to be really careful what we do next, because Vietnam wasn't a success. Afghanistan is debatable that it was a success. And I just don't feel like we are, as a country, capable or should be putting efforts to saving others when we are struggling to save ourselves currently. Plus, I don't know who to believe. I just don't. And I think a lot of us are at that point right now where we don't know what to believe anymore because, we've been lied to so much from the press, the corporate press, politicians, and everything like that, where they tell us of these dramatic boogeyman that if we don't crush, they're going to blah, 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 blah. We have to do this. So that's always, as soon as I hear, like, if we don't do this, it's going to be World War III. That's when my ears perk up and go, really? It's going to be World War III? Justin, what's up, man? Sweet baby Jesus. This administration is a complete disaster, not to mention becoming extremely dangerous as own citizens, stretching our country is so thin with COVID, inflation, and now war. Exactly. We are already so stretched thin as it is, and our dollar is not doing well. As the Dow plummeted, but then started to creep back up, as always. Pump and dump. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts on this war thing, because I don't think we have the stomach, as far as our culture goes, to engage in a war. I can't imagine going to war with a huge country like Russia in today's world. But, maybe it's just my own weakness of the fact that I didn't have to live through a world war in my generation. And maybe that's just my blindsidedness to history, and maybe it's my blindsidedness to the inevitability of what Patton said at the end of World War II, where he said that Russia was our next biggest enemy, but Patton was also a big war guy. So I pump the brakes a little bit and slow down our speech, think through these problems. And I know Biden, I think part of me feels like Biden is looking for a W in any capacity. So he sees maybe this is his escape from his constant failure. It's funny, I watch all these podcasts and these TikTokers and social media influencers talking about how great of a job Biden is doing. I'm like, you don't read the news, do you? You just watch your narrative being played out before your eyes. Let me know your thoughts on Ukraine. Honestly, I haven't heard one good argument for going to war. The only logical argument I've heard is if we don't, Russia's going to keep going. But I just don't feel like Russia is the Soviet Union. Countries change. Japan changed. China obviously changed. East Germany has changed. Also, what is Germany doing in this moment? Nothing. So there's What else is going on? Let's check out some of my favorite tweeters. Oh my gosh. Biden is in a little bit of trouble. He yelled at Peter Doocy, calling him a son of a bitch, but I want to hear this first.
The only reason I don't like doing this is you never report on why I've called a meeting. And this is really important. I had a very, very, very good meeting, total unanimity with all the European leaders. We'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Cool. Justin says, war is just another distraction from the current events. I feel like it is a distraction. And maybe that's just the part of the conspiracy in me, the conspiracy theorist in me, the truth seeker, if you want to call it something different. But we have so much going wrong to be worried about another country. It's just silly. We're talking about election security in our in our own. Okay, here's the clip from Peter. Okay, here's the clip about Peter Doocy asking Biden a question and then him calling him a son of a bitch. Listen very carefully. I'm gonna pump the volume up.
Why are you sending 8,500 troops to Ukraine? What do you think President Biden plays with that? Do you think he plays with a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Wow. The media has constantly tried to make Biden to be like, just your uncle. He's just a good dude. He'll probably go get ice cream with you. He could play with your children. He's always been a bit of a dick. Biden has always been a bit of a douchebag, and that's just how he is and how he's always been. I mean, he fabricated an entire story about his life in order to be elected at one point and had to drop it. So like to say like this guy is a stand-up, I hear some of my like liberal friends, I voted for Biden because he brought back morality to the office. Give me a freaking break. And then they'll hear stuff like this and go, yeah, but remember when Trump never called a reporter a son of a bitch. Could you imagine, especially if he called somebody from CNN like Acosta or somebody, the outrage by every reporter on MSNBC, CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, ABC, all of them combined, they would all be losing their minds. But no, stuff like this will be brushed under the rug because we care about our tribe more than truth, don't we? Because it's more important. We'll get more into tribal stuff later. But yeah, there's Biden doing his thing, being Biden. Okay, Biden on Microsoft and Apple. What does he have to say?
For example, Apple and Microsoft are changing their policies so folks will be able to repair their phones and laptops themselves. Although I'm not sure I know how to do that.
Yeah, we know.
When I have any problem with my phone, I call my daughter.
Why not your son?
It's going to make it easy for millions of Americans to repair their electronics instead of paying an arm and a leg to repair or just throwing the device out.
Oh, I love that Apple's finally being like, well, we're going to pretend like we're like Microsoft and allow you just to be able to, own your own product and allow you to like create your own answers to things. 7 school board members sue Glenn Youngkin over mask optional policy. There you go. All about the science. Justin says, probably not a good idea to piss off countries we buy all our oil from, since we shut down our... Yeah, that's exactly what I was alluding to earlier, maybe before you jumped on. This idea that we're going to go to war with somebody who we buy oil from is just weird. Why would you do that? You're all about green energy, and at the same time you want to buy your oil from, people that don't care about the environment, because we're all about being two-faced here. This is all very interesting. Okay, this is Kirby. Gotta love Kirby. Say that loosely. Let's see what he has to say.
Has there been any consideration or decision about pulling U.S. troops out of Ukraine as the State Department made the decision to pull some Americans out?
There's been no decisions about moving our trainers that are in Ukraine out. But as I said many times, we're constantly looking at the situation. We're going to do what's right for their safety and security. That's paramount to us. But as of right now, they are still on the ground in Ukraine conducting their advise and assist missions. And obviously, if that changes, we'll certainly let you know.
They haven't changed the number, right? The footprint remains the same.
It is exactly the same.
I think this is a perfect question to be answered.
John, thanks for taking my question. I know we kept talking here and saying, diplomacy is not dead here, but with the U.S. now preparing to send troops to allies on the eastern flank, is this just further agitating Russia? And we're telling diplomats' families to leave and Americans to leave. So is this moving on from a diplomatic effort to preparing for an invasion?
Not at all. Again, what we're telling these units to do is to be ready to go on a shorter timeline than what they were before. We are not deploying them now. We are not saying diplomacy is dead. You heard Secretary Blinken talk about this on Sunday.
Maybe our diplomacy is dead. I mean, could you imagine sending Anthony Blinken in to stop a war? The dude is a robot. Every time I've watched that guy speak, he's got no personality, and we're doing everything we can in America to figure out what's going on. We have told Russia that everything that we need to do is that they need to not be who they say they are, and we will continue buying oil from them because they will not cross the boundary in which I myself have. Sorry, I mean, could you imagine being intimidated by him at all? No. Let's keep listening.
In many outlets that he still believes there is room for discussion and dialogue. I said that myself in my opening statement. We absolutely still believe that there's time and space for that. And frankly, the Department of Defense fully supports that as being the way forward here, the way to a solution that de-escalates the tensions. But it would be irresponsible if, given the indications that we have, that there is no intent by the Russians right now to de-escalate, and given that it takes a matter of time to get units more ready to go on a shorter time frame, it'd be irresponsible if we didn't think about making sure that they had plenty of time to prepare. And that's all we're doing at this point.
Yeah, you don't want a Afghan situation in Ukraine. He did a great job pulling out of Afghanistan. No problems there whatsoever. What's next? Boring question. Kirby asked, sending Ukraine troops would deter Putin. I don't think anything's going to deter Putin at this point. I think Putin is waiting to figure out what the NATO's doing and what we're going to do before he makes a move. I mean, why would he stop? It's funny that, you know, I find it funny that liberals always talked about how Trump was like best buddies with Putin, but Putin has been more aggressive with Obama and Joe Biden than Trump. So remind me again how Trump and Putin are best buddies and will allow Putin to do whatever he wants? Sure. Wink. I mean, it's just so silly, some of the things that people say at this point. We are on high alert. This is not like a joke. Honestly, I'm at the point now where I just can't imagine going and starting a World War III in my generation, with my generation currently. What a time to be alive. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on going to war in 2022 with a huge country like Russia, and who knows who would align with them. I mean, it's just crazy. I think we're so complacent in our lives. We're so sheltered in the world. In a lot of ways, we think America, I don't know. I'm just imagining my generation fighting a world war currently. I think we're so focused on playing on our phones, doing our TikTok dances, being triggered by emotional things, hate speech and stuff like that, to engage in a war of death and destruction with evil and horrors that you can't imagine to be had. In my generation, the temperament in which my generation is, when things like fat shaming or not being fat forward or whatever that is a big issue, as opposed to, you know, actual slavery, what's going on in places that we won't mention, China. And my generation is not ready to engage in war. We're more worried about our social media bullying that we could just end by deleting an app than we are about a physical bully fighting us and guns being shot in our face. I know they say that, you know, hard times create hard men. I think people need to gear up for that. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe right now, and I think people are too complacent and aren't looking at the reality of life, that there are evil men and women in the world, and there's a real morality issue and crisis in our country currently. Because so many Americans assume that America is the worst country on earth, blah, blah, blah. We have the worst history. Like, we can all talk about that crazy stuff being passed around. while there is an actual potential for war staring at you in the face. So we have people that hate our country that might have to go to war to fight for our country. What a time to be alive. The majority, Justin, the majority would cannon fodder? Probably. I think a lot of people would be shell-shocked. You know, a lot of those World War II, World War I guys that would just, they would hear those things and they would be just totally messed up. And our generation isn't ready. Our generation is not ready. Okay, we got some Jensaki stuff going down. Here we go. Jensaki, here we go.
Another subject, another violent weekend across the country. There was the shooting in New York. There was a shooting here in D.C. of a police officer. There have been reports of a possible executive actions that the president might be able to take in the realm of police reform or police policy. Where do things stand on that? And might that be coming soon?
May I address this weekend first, and I will come around to your question, but I think you had a few in there, important ones to address. The events of this weekend are a reminder that law enforcement officers head into harm's way every single day. They and their families make an extraordinary sacrifice for their communities. The president is never going to be satisfied or complacent when officers are being gunned down, or when Americans have to worry about whether they can safely ride the subway or bus or even be at work. We've seen a surge in crime. Obviously, this weekend is a glaring example of that, especially gun violence over the last 2 years, and the president has been aggressive in using the tools at our disposal to combat that. That's why he took early action on gun violence last spring, and it's why he rolled out a comprehensive plan to combat crime last summer. He also believes, as many Americans do, that we can and must have a criminal justice system that both protects public safety and upholds our founding ideals of equal treatment under law. That's why he not only has implemented this comprehensive plan to combat crime, but why he is continuing to advocate for reforms to our policing system. He thinks that we can do both, but I don't have an update on any timings for next step on that.
What a crazy time to be alive. We have crime skyrocketing in all our cities, major cities, nationwide. As we had a summer of Democrats shouting to defund the police, saying they get paid. We're putting too much money in our police safety, and we need to have community policing, because a lot of these people that are proposing these things have never grown up on the streets, never been in a street fight before. They've lived in their private schools. They've had in their nice communities. They don't know what it's like to feel danger. They don't know what it's like you and me. Like, I lived in Chicago. I used to ride the CTA all the time. I know what it's like to fear for my life. It's going to certain stops. These people do not understand the realities of life, and as they push for things. But the real issue not necessarily isn't the defunding of the police and all that stuff and it's these DAs that constantly are letting these criminals off on charges that are insane, as they constantly just and allow them to come out of jail because of COVID and because of I don't mean like it's not real. I mean, like, it's like we're just letting criminals out of jails, where our DAs are allowing criminals to just walk on these crazy charges, like that Waukesha guy that we pretend like didn't happen. Waukesha, one of the worst terror attacks in a long, long time, and we're not going to talk about it. Yeah, that story got put under the rug real quick, but we have these DAs that a lot of us didn't realize the power they had and are starting to finally see. But will LA ever change from this ideology? Will Chicago ever change? Will New York? It doesn't seem so. So get out of these cities of where these DAs control and constantly allow criminals to get put back on the street. Because like I said before, and I say all the time, we have an entire generation, we have an entire corporate media and politicians who only want you to focus your empathy on towards the actual criminal, as opposed to the victims of the crime. It's amazing what that Stop Asian Hate suddenly went away when you saw the majority of the people that were actually committing the crimes. If it doesn't fit the narrative, they put it under the rug. We're not about truth in corporate media. We're about the narrative. And if it doesn't fit what we like to say, we shut it down as fast as you can say, George Soros. All right, let's get into the next clip. Oh, Peter Deuce.
Crime, to follow up on what Ed was asking about. Would you agree that the most important job for any president is to keep Americans safe?
I would agree.
The president's never satisfied if people don't feel safe. Does he know that after a year in office, people do not feel safe in this country?
Well, Peter, I think if we look at the facts here, we've seen a surge of crime over the last 2 years. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So what are you attributing the rise in crime to then?
Well, I think we should be responsible in how we're reporting to the public what the roles are, what the reasons for the surge in crime. Gun violence is a huge reason for the surge in crime. Underfunding of some police departments.
When they say gun violence, they mean they assume these people are buying legal guns. As opposed to, the FBI doing their job with background checks and stuff like that.
And their need for additional resources, something the president has advocated for consistently through the course of his career. That's something we know we need to take action on. And it is absolutely true that he will not be satisfied or complacent when officers are being gunned down or when Americans have to worry about whether they can safely.
I'm just going to the next question. The minute I see her start reading from the script is the minute I tune out. It's just like, it's just such a fake answer, and you're just being told what to say as opposed to like giving the actual truth. Ooh, this looks like a question. Let's listen to this question. I think this question is going to be fire.
Last year, more than 60% of the alliance's 30 members, including half of the Bucharest 9 that are right near Russia there, failed to meet their 2% GDP spending commitment. If Europeans aren't willing to expend blood and treasure on their self-defense, why should Americans be expected to do so?
Literally what I said
we are
before.
Continuing to advocate for all members to reach the 2% goal. That has been the president's position since he was the vice president, so for many years now. I would say that we have a sacred obligation under NATO, and we believe it is also in our interest to support our eastern flank countries and their security, and also to be clear about the value we have as Americans, which is that no country should be able to take with force another country as Russia is attempting to do at this point.
Yeah, but why aren't the European countries worried about what's going on in Ukraine as much as we are? It literally makes no logical sense. But again, we need to send our boys and girls to harm because it'll be World War III. I just, why isn't Europe at all doing anything about it? Why isn't Germany? Why is it always us? It's always us when we have so many problems to get fixed. Please help me. Obviously, I'm not an expert, but I'm just a dumb American who's never fought in a World War III or II. Justin, if criminal wants to buy a gun, they're getting a gun, period. If you think, if you think gun laws are going to stop, no. Gun laws will never stop criminals from getting guns. The same way drug laws do not stop you and me from buying illegal drugs off the street. It's amazing how some of the most strict states that are enforce drugs, how easy it is to find these drugs. But again, laws do not necessarily make it to where it doesn't happen, but it forces your police force to worry about it. I think it just boils down to that of if a criminal wants a gun, they're going to get a gun. Just like if a criminal wants drugs, they will get drugs. That's just, if you're looking, you will find, my friend. To say like a law is going to stop anyone, and especially gun laws will just make the criminals with the ones with guns and the ones that are like people like you and me who are citizens who follow the laws and aren't trying to get in trouble and just keep to ourselves and use it as a means to protect ourselves from who knows what, but a means of protection, those people are affected by those kind of laws, not criminals. Just so logic is gone. It's just gone. We need to stop sticking to our noses in everyone else's business. Our country is so volatile. Yes. Like, I know we're very focused on Ukraine and Russia right now, but our country is so volatile in this moment where we can't even agree to definitions of words anymore, where we have this postmodern thought where everything is fluid and everything is nuanced, and even history, we can't even agree on so many things, and we can't even have a conversation with one another. We have people in our country that have kicked family members out of Christmas time with family because they're unvaccinated, but yet we feel like we need to go in to Ukraine and Russia and stop it because we're the moral authority of the day. We have so many issues in our country that we can't get solved. We can't even have a conversation with one another without someone feeling triggered. But we want to go to war? Especially with people with nuclear powers? Yeah. I got it. It's just, our country is so volatile. We need stability. We are in dire need of stability. Dire. We need to be able to have conversations. We need to be able to not worry about the narrative and spreading misinformation, whatever word you want to use of the day. It's just, this is where we are. Okay.
Cool with no.
Oh, this is great. I think this is here's Peter Ducey's best question of the day. I love this.
Thank you. On schools in Virginia, 7 districts representing 350,000 students are suing the state. They're hoping to get a strict mask mandate for students that has been rolled back by the new governor reinstated. So
keep in mind that part.
Who does the president think knows best for students? School board members or parents?
It's not even parents. School board members, the governor. Who has the power to make decisions in school? I think that's where it ultimately boils down to. Not necessarily the parents, but also the parents. As everyone has always said about, oh, thanks, Justin, for that comment. Appreciate it, man. As everyone's always said about COVID is that it boils down to power in the end. And I think you're starting to see that in full display. But let's keep listening to the answer to this question because, as always, it's important to hear context. It's important to hear the answer. And it's important for me as a podcaster not to take things out of context. But let's keep listening.
Well, the president believes that public health officials have the best guidance on what we can all do to protect ourselves, including teachers, administrators, and students. It's always been up to local school districts to determine.
Did she say stool districts? But there you have it. Our public health experts, she's saying that should have all the power. But let's keep listening because I don't want to stop it.
How they're going to approach what implementation measures they're going to put in place. But here's what we know from public health officials who are the experts on a pandemic. Studies show that masks reduce transmissions in school.
Here we go. She's reading from her little list. Make sure you say this, Jen.
They can thus help keep schools open and safe. In short, we know it works, and we need every leader to focus on using the tactics we know work to keep our students safe and our schools open. I know you mentioned Virginia, but in Texas, the state is fighting a critical
Texas
public
and
health
Florida
measure
per
to protect
usual.
our children and keep our schools safely open for Head Start communities. Ones that a provision that is requiring masks to keep students and keep communities safe. They're fighting against that. Why is that? I think that has more to do with politics than it does with public health.
But right now in Virginia, the law is, now that there's a new governor, but students should not have to wear masks if their parents say that they don't think they need to wear masks. So if a parent wants to send their kid to school with no mask, should that child be allowed to go to school and be in class?
Again, what we're advising school districts on is to abide by public health guidelines and follow public health guidelines. And it's about keeping an entire community safe. And those are the decisions that are being, that people should focus on making.
Just so that it's crystal clear for anybody watching, you guys think that ultimately in this conflict between school board members and parents, the school board members should have more of a say in what
That's actually not what I said. I think everybody should abide.
Okay, then they go on to fight, but I think Peter missed the point, is that it's not, has nothing to do with the school board. It has everything to do with the public health officials. And obviously the school board aligns with the public health officials. So the idea is public check. You know, this is what happens when you do a live show, folks. God, it's just take an L, bro. I just took one. So, like I was saying, it has everything to do with public health officials versus the governors and who has the power to dictate and what the way in which we live. It always has gone down to that, and that's why it's not political, it's science. Just so you guys know. Period. All right. Don't you love making a point and in the middle of a point just like ooh. This is a fire question. Jensaki asks, should race be a factor in college applications?
Should race be a factor in college admissions?
Well, this is, I think, in relation, I would expect, to the announcement by the Supreme Court about the decision to take up the affirmative action case this morning. While we're not going to comment on the litigation or for those questions, of course, the Department of Justice, we strongly believe this administration in the benefits of diversity in higher education, and we take very seriously our commitment to advancing equity and equal opportunity for historically underserved populations.
Except for
That's
Asians,
why on day one,
apparently.
the president signed an executive order launching an ambitious whole-of-government response to center equity throughout the government's work. Throughout the Department of Education, the administration has provided historic investments and support for historically black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and minority-serving institutions, such as Hispanic-serving institutions, including nearly $21 billion in cumulative support. And we have moved swiftly to protect student civil rights and equal opportunity, including by issuing guidance about schools' obligations to investigate and address claims of discrimination and harassment. So, of course, the Department of Justice, they can speak to their view on the litigation.
Should race...
Help me understand the logic of this question and this idea. If I knew something in colleges, let's say for gingers have a tough life, and I would say my life wasn't easy growing up. But because of that, I'm allowed to have dumber test answers, test equivalency, test taking skills, and not as efficient in math, English, and science. And I'm allowed to get into college with people who are much smarter than me. I would be angry and feel like I was just giving this as a token and not because I earned it. I think we're getting away from that in culture where of earning your way, working your ass off to get where you are today. And people just want things to be given to them because they had a tough life. And in reality, a lot of us had a tough life. It's not just the color of your skin. But right now you have places like Harvard that are making it harder for Asians to get in because there's too many Asians at Harvard. And that is blatantly racism. Lowering your standards for another race to get into your college because they're not smart enough or whatever, or because because they don't score high enough on the test. That's racism. I mean, it's just like the voter ID laws. Like, I just can't handle this like subtle racism that these white liberals think they're coming to save America, save your race, save you from not doing well in life because you had such a hard life. And then the people like myself, or like even worse, some people in some, trailer park homes in the middle of nowhere, they just get put in the group. You look a certain way, your life was hard. You might have been working since you were in, middle school, like myself, to make weight, and you get mashed up in a group because of the way you look, as opposed to, I don't know. We just need to go back to other factors. Maybe you write well. Maybe you don't test as well. Maybe you write really well. I mean, can't we just go back to that? This is the standard now. Everyone gets a trophy. If it was that way when I was growing up, I'd be a freaking millionaire, Fortune 500 CEO. Well, honestly, this is a product of our generation, a product for our society of like, oh, I have a degree. Oh, I look this way. Oh, because my life was this way, I should be given this. As opposed to, just starting from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now our whole club. All right, let's check out what's Insider Paper talking about. 7 U.S. soldiers injured in a Navy F-35C fighter landing mishap. That's really crazy. And we want to go to war right now. Okay. Perfect. Oh, but this. Okay. Libs of TikTok. Shout out to Libs of TikTok, as always. But this. Okay. There's this video of these white women losing. There's this video of these white women losing their minds in an elevator with an unmasked black man. Let's watch this.
Get out.
Get out.
Yo, stop.
Get out. Get out.
What you guys doing? Get out. What you guys doing? What's wrong with
Get out.
you?
Don't touch me.
Don't you have
Do not touch me.
Get out.
Do not touch me.
Get out. I'm not touching you.
Do not
Oh,
touch
did you just hit me?
Do
Did
not
you
touch
just hit me?
You just hit me.
You just hit me? You too?
Black Lives Matter.
Yo, this is racist.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Hitting a black man and then saying Black Lives Matter. See, this is... Was Black Lives Matter ever a Black Lives Matter? Don't you love politics?
Stop. Yo, stop. Stop recording me. I don't know you. Yo, you need to stop.
Get out.
No, I'm not getting out. I was here
Yes, you
first.
are.
Get out.
Are we ever going to get back to a country where we can just not wear masks ever? Because I think there are some people that are walking around that are really going to miss the days where they can police people. Put your mask on. You're like, hey, your mask is under your nose. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Oh, man. Don't you love what's going on? Okay. This is something that's being passed around, and I think it's important to watch and see for your eyes. Is this lady, Tiffany Cross, urges liberals to pick up a weapon and get involved in war for democracy. Oh, my gosh. Let's watch this video. Let's get a live reaction.
But this is a war. This isn't a battle. And we absolutely will win this war.
It is a war. It is indeed a war. And I have to say, they have won some battles, Jasmine, but we have to keep our eye on the war, and everybody needs to pick up a weapon and get involved, because this is for the safety and lasting of the country.
We need to pick up a weapon. This is a war. But again, it's the white conservative Trump supporters that are the actual terrorists. What reality are we all living in today? Because the people that I see tearing down, society isn't the conservative Republicans. But again, logic isn't allowed to be had because it's racist. And you should know that. Stay woke. Oh. And then Vice President Harris talk today. I don't even know if I want to watch this. Let me know your guys' thoughts on everything that's going on in the world, because there's some crazy stuff going on in the world, especially with Ukraine and Russia, and I just don't feel like we're ready. I don't feel like we're ready to know what's going on, see what's going on, and feel what's going on. And this is a weird, what a time to be alive. Dude, Justin, Seriously, what a time to be alive. I appreciate you for joining me, brother, and I appreciate you guys for joining me, getting in the chat. Give a thumbs up, share this podcast with all your friends and family, and let them know about the Derek O'Shea Show. I would greatly appreciate all you guys, and I hope you guys have a freaking fantastic rest of your day. I love you. Goodbye.